Hey, this is Molly. Before I introduce you to today's guest, I'm thrilled to tell you about an unbelievable event on May 5th that I am super excited to be a part of. Broadcast live from Atlanta to 100,000 people around the globe, LeaderCast Live is the largest one-day leadership event in the world. Join me and an incredible lineup: Tyler Perry, Andy Stanley, Daniel Pink, and Susie Welch, just to name a few. Again, it's on May 5th, and it's a day of leadership development. To learn more about how you and your team can attend or host a live simulcast, visit leadercast.com. Welcome to Game Changers with Molly Fletcher, where we take you behind the scenes with peak performers to learn what makes them tick and discover how you can apply their lessons to your life. I'm your host, Molly Fletcher. Today's guest is a Hollywood stuntwoman, a top competitor on American Ninja Warriors, and all-around badass. At age 5, Jessie Graff wanted to run away to the circus, but she had to settle for circus gymnastics. Fast forward, and we have ourselves a competitive gymnast, a championship pole vaulter, a black belt in Taekwondo, a black sash in Kung Fu, and she's trained in 5 other styles of martial arts. She says being a professional stuntwoman is living out her dream of being a superhero. And after watching her compete on American Ninja Warriors, we don't disagree. Her day-to-day activities include, quote, anything on the rooftops, sides of buildings or bridges, and dynamic wipeouts. Jessie and I talk about breaking gender barriers, Hollywood dreams, and how to stare down fear. Follow her on Twitter and Instagram at Jessie Graff, PWR, and catch her in action April 29th through the 30th on the Wolfpack Ninja Tour in Denver. So, Jessie Graff, I got to tell you, it is awesome to have you on. I tell you what, I've watched you, and you are, in one word, you're a tumbleweed, right? That's your thing, I think. But you're also a badass.
I made that up before I knew that weed had any other meanings besides.
Oh, okay, got it.
But I like tumbling and flipping, so it seemed appropriate. And I like traveling around to whatever location will best facilitate my current goal.
That is that is awesome. Well, so let's dig in. You know, you've broken all sorts of gender stereotypes.
Isn't that fun?
It's so fun, I know, and you're doing it really well. What's the message what's the message through what you're doing that you'd want to share with the world?
Oh my gosh, there's so many things that I didn't think about having a message until I started getting all this publicity, I guess. But through this process, I've learned things that my mom taught me that maybe I didn't realize weren't common knowledge throughout the world. I've met so many women through this who were told that they can't. And I just never got that message as a kid, and I didn't realize how lucky I was. And so being able to have this position where I get to share that with the world, where, my first time competing on Ninja Warrior, I fell on the 5th obstacle, and I was a little disappointed, but I hadn't trained, so I thought it was all right. And in an interview, they were like, do you think this is possible for a woman to do? And I just laughed. I didn't understand the question. I was like, why would a woman not be able to do this? Why is this even a question?
Right.
Yeah. And it's been so cool to learn all the things that people assume women can't do and be like, of course we can do that. And, muscular things take more effort for us. We don't have as much testosterone. We have to train a little harder to be as strong. But in a sport like Ninja Warrior, where so much of it is mental and based on understanding the physics of how to get through an obstacle efficiently, we can gain an advantage there.
Sure. Oh my gosh, I'm sure. I want to ask you about that. But first I want to ask you this a little bit more. What do you tell women who are working in an industry that's potentially really male dominated? And you've done it and you've broken the barriers, right? So what do you tell women that are trying to do the same things you've done in maybe a different field or a different space?
I'm not sure if it's different in other fields or different spaces, but my experience has been if I don't look at being a woman as an obstacle or a barrier, it isn't one. I've never come up against something where I was going up for a job and they said, or even I got the impression that they only wanted a man. A lot of that, I think, I don't know. I'm sure there's different industries where that is an issue, and I hear about it all the time now, but my experience has been that it just is not a factor at all. And I guess that is a unique experience maybe, but because it never occurred to me that being a woman would keep me from doing anything, it just hasn't ever stopped me.
Right, right. How much do you think that's your mindset?
I'm not sure. I think it's different in my career in stunts because when you're going out for a job, it is very specific. They need a woman to fill this spot because it's a stunt double to double a woman. And because there are fewer stunt women than there are stunt men, in a way, it's almost an advantage to the woman. In another way, not, because there are fewer spots open for stunt women because in movies, if you have the hero, because of our society and the way it's set up and everything, the hero doesn't look very heroic if he's fighting an army of women. So most of the time, you're going to have all the bad guys, all the thugs. They're going to be way more men than there are women. So again, less jobs for stunt women, but also a smaller pool of stunt women to choose from.
Sure. And and so why stunts, right? I mean, why stunts and what's some of the training regimens that you go through to prepare for the various stunts?
Oh, two big questions. I guess stunts was so obvious to me when it finally hit me. I've always wanted to be a superhero on TV. And like, since I was 12, I always knew that that's what I was going to work towards as one of my goals. I had a lot.
Right, right.
So I was assuming I was going to be an actor, and I went to college majoring in theater, and had all these plans to train to be an actor so that I could be a superhero or action hero. Didn't really matter if I had powers. But when I got much closer to it, I was about a year from graduating from college, I found out that the actors, I mean, maybe people know this earlier than I did, but it hadn't occurred to me that I wouldn't be allowed to do most of the stunts as an actor. So when I found out that being a stunt woman or stunt double was a separate job, then it just hit me like a wall. It was not a wall, but I was suddenly like, oh my gosh, of course, why didn't I think of this before? And so I kept up with my acting training because that does help with stunts. You're still performing with our bodies. And sometimes we get roles where we're saying a couple lines and then getting hit by a car. But it's just, I loved everything about it. Just like flying through the air, jumping off of cliffs, into the water or an airbag. But that feeling of like the stomach drop you get when your body feels all these outside sensations, like it's an emergency. So you get that adrenaline rush, but that stomach drop of like, oh my gosh, I'm going to die. But your mind is completely clear and understanding the fact that you're in control of the situation and you know what you're doing and you're going to be fine. And having that controversy in my body and mind where I can observe it and manage it and successfully complete my task is just such a cool and empowering feeling. And so we get to do that in lots of ways. You know, you jump off a building and you're on a wire, but it feels like you're falling.
Wow.
Or it's such a cool feeling. But also, like, I love telling the story. I love doing like these cool flips and kicks that are beautiful on their own, but then fitting them into a story and being like, this is why it's happening and why it's so exciting.
Sure.
And it's just a dream come true being able to do that and make a living at it.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I bet it is. And it's such obviously a unique niche, right? And you get to do so many amazing things and you pave the way for amazing other young women, right? I mean, I know that you are a role model for so many awesome young women and we need more women like that. So it's awesome.
Thank you.
So tell me what motivates you, right? Like, what's your why?
You know, I was thinking about that last night, and I'm not sure that I know. I just have such a strong burning desire to do amazing things, that unchecked, I will push it too hard, overtrain, and get into trouble and almost self-sabotage in that way. And so when I'm thinking about having to motivate myself, it's the opposite. It's being like, I know that you want to run more stairs. I know that you have this pressure. You want to be stronger and faster, and you want to do all these things to get better immediately. And if you do, you're going to get a stress fracture. You're going to be too tired and lose air awareness. And if you care as much as you say you do, if you want it as badly as you feel like you do, you have to have the discipline to stop right now. You have to go to physical therapy and do injury prevention exercises. You have to foam roll and work out all the knots you have. And what is my why? I don't know. I love that. Maybe that's it. I love that feeling that I was telling you about, of the achievement of being like, this is impossible. I don't understand how this could ever be possible for anyone. And I want to disprove that. I want to prove to myself that things that I think are impossible are not. I want to be able to fly.
And so do you think so when you were a kid, when people said, nobody's ever done that, you probably can't do that, but appreciate your interest in it. You were the one, were you the kid that was like, oh, okay, cool, got it, and then you went and did it?
Yeah.
Okay, I got it.
Pretty much. Unless it was someone, like I got really upset when my grandmother once told me, like, you can't be in the circus. That's what I wanted when I was really little. I wanted to be in the circus. And because I loved and cared about her and valued her opinion, it was really hurtful. But, like, if someone I don't know, it's funny all the time, like, there was this guy that I was competing against last year in Ninja Warrior. Like, we walked in together and he's looking over all the obstacles. He's like, I think I got this. Doesn't look too bad. The balance is a little tricky, but upper body's no problem. And I was like, I don't know. That's a lot of upper body in a row, and it's really jarring and high impact. I think it's going to be pretty hard when you put them all together. And he, nicely and timidly was like, well, yeah, I mean, for a girl.
Whoa.
And it was so funny because he wasn't trying to interrogate it or instigate anything.
Right.
It was just his understanding is like, this is possible and not too hard for me, but no, like, of course it's going to be really hard for you because you're a girl, and it's not hurtful in any way to me. It's just entertaining that, like, oh, you think that? That's
right,
cute.
Right. So you made sure you found him after you crushed it.
No.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah. So no, he fell on the second obstacle. And I made it to 9.
Nice. Do you ever feel fear? I mean, do you ever feel fear, and how do you deal with it? I have a book that's released on April 7th it's called Fearless at Work. Mm-hmm. And it's all about kind of how do we overcome our fears, because we all have them, right? It's very natural. Mm-hmm. But given what you do, I would imagine you face it a lot, and clearly you've learned how to overcome it in some pretty incredible and real and physical ways. How do you do that?
Well, make sure I get back to the mental part of that in, like, regular life after this. But I've thought about it a lot. How do I get over fears of doing, like, big physical tasks that are so intimidating? Part of it is that I love the feeling of doing it. But another part, that, like, the way I break it down in stunts is you look at your stunt, and are you afraid? Do you have any of that anxiety? And that's important. It's important to understand why the fear is there. It's there to protect you, to keep you safe, to make sure you're paying attention. And so if I feel that fear before I do a stunt, then something's wrong. My focus isn't completely on the details of how to make this stunt work safely. So what's giving me that fear? Have we done the math? Is my airbag in the right place? Because if I'm doing a high fall and the airbag's in the wrong place, I'm going to die. So the consequences are very high. Like, did we measure correctly? Am I spotting the right point? Do I know the timing? Have we rehearsed how this guy is pushing me so that I still have control of the direction I'm going? And if I've neglected any one of those things, then we're in trouble. And so feeling that fear gives me that reminder to check everything, double check everything, check it. And that's so important. And once you've gone through everything, if you're still feeling that fear, then you have to be like, okay, there's only space in my brain for so much. put all of that space, fill it with the details of what you're doing. There's too much to focus on to have space for fear. And if you can shift your focus to those things, you will forget about the fear. And so for me, it's just giving myself enough important things to focus on and then not worry about the fear. And then, of course, everyone has their own challenges with fear. And for me, it was more about like social networking. Like, what do you do? Like, how do you walk into this big stunt networking event and just introduce yourself to people? Because I was such a shy kid. And that's where the why came in. And it was just, socially, I would not motivate myself to do that. I'd be like, you know what? I like hanging out at home with my friends. I like going to work out. I'm going to a bar to socialize is not a thing I want to do.
Right.
But because I had that strong why of like, I want to be a superhero. And the only way to do it is to go into this room of people you've never met and meet them and find out how they got into it. And, what does a stunt coordinator do? And just find all of their stories.
Sure.
And because I wanted it so badly, I had to force myself to do it. And so again, it's like, well, what things are you going to focus on? What are good questions to ask stunt people? What will help educate you to make you a better stunt woman? And what will make you sound like you're thinking about the right things to ask the right questions? And yeah, that was one of the scariest things for me.
Mm-hmm.
But that was how I worked through it.
But it's interesting that you go back to the preparation, right? You go back to the details. You lock in on, have I checked all the boxes? And if I have, then you can really rationally say, okay, then I have nothing to fear. I'm going to move this out and trade that fear for another more positive emotion, mindset, et cetera. That's
exactly
makes perfect sense.
And in that same situation, even like mentally, socially, outside of stunts, if you're feeling that fear, again, there's a reason for it. What are the consequences? If I walk into this room and I look like an idiot, no one's going to want to hire me. So there is something to be afraid of there.
Sure.
So go through, check your boxes. What am I afraid of? What might I say that would make me unlikely to be hired? Okay, don't say that.
Right.
What else? What should I say to look like a hireable stunt person? And go through that and make sure you're prepared. Maybe journal about it. Write out like possible scenarios. And the more scared you are, the more preparation you have to do.
Sure. Wow. I love that mindset. I haven't quite heard it put that way before. And It's awesome. So you came into the public eye, obviously, in a pretty big way as a contestant on American Ninja Warrior. And how did that experience change your life, right? What did it do from sort of changing your day-to-day life? And what did you learn about yourself, right, as you went through that competition? Which is, by the way, congratulations, unbelievable.
Thank you.
Total stud. Total stud.
Well, it's funny because in one way, nothing's changed. I wake up at weird hours. I train, I go to work, or I go to work and then I train on set. And this is so important. Like, it keeps me so humble that, I'm not the star actor. I'm the stunt double. And there's the hierarchy of everything on set. And I keep the actress safe. I pull pads. I keep my fellow stunt people safe. And then at the end of the day, we pick up all the pads and we clean them off. And so that part of my life hasn't changed at all.
Cool.
And I'm so immersed in that like, I'm still me. I'm still doing all the same things. I'm still working really hard to earn my way up the ladder. And then, on social media and then doing interviews and all this stuff, I have hundreds or thousands of people writing to me asking for advice. Like, how do you build upper body strength? Or like, how do you have this balance of eating healthy, but not being like obsessive about your food, and like, what kind of training do you do? How much cardio do you like?
Right. I bet it's endless.
And I tell them, I'm not a trainer, I'm not a nutritionist, but this is what I do. And I've gotten more into, when people are asking me, and I started doing pull-ups when I was 6 or 7 years old. So I didn't go through the same process that an adult will have to do if they've never done one before. And so I've been doing more research on how does a beginner learn, and working with more people and making these like video tutorials, and then I get these pictures and videos of little girls doing pull-ups, or even like
how
one arm
cool.
pull-ups. And having that interaction is so inspiring to me.
Sure.
And, makes me want to train harder and do more physical therapy so that I'm a good example and I don't go be dumb and get hurt kind of thing. And that's just like, it takes my breath away. I always wanted to be a superhero, but I never thought that, like, I thought I'd be playing a superhero, being a character. And I never even imagined that I would be a superhero as myself, like a TV personality that little kids dress up as for Halloween. And it's, I don't know, it makes me bubble thinking that
Sure.
happened.
Well, you're changing lives. I mean, and little girls' lives, and probably a ton of little boys' lives. It doesn't get much better than that, right?
Yeah.
When you look back at American Ninja Warrior, what was the most sort of challenging part about the competition, right? I mean, I've of course watched it. What was the hardest part? It all looked, by the way, very hard to me.
Well, honestly, the hardest part, I'm still working on it. The lower body obstacles take the athleticism of, I like to say, an average athletic male. And it's not that hard for a woman to train to get that much explosiveness. But the upper body stuff, the grip strength, requires the strength of an elite rock climber.
Right.
And that's not the kind of thing you can build in a year or two. So even though, the reason I got so into Ninja Warrior was actually because I blew out my knee and needed something new to focus on. And so that's when I started really working on my grip strength and pull-ups and everything. And so, it's funny, like a lot of people will be really encouraging and tell me they think I'm going to win the whole thing this year, which would be amazing. But in my honest opinion, you don't build that kind of strength in even 3 years. There's only 2 guys who have ever done it, and they've been rock climbers for 20 years.
Wow.
And I believe that I can build that strength. I believe it's possible. I believe there are definitely women who could even do it right now. But for me, having started rock climbing 3 years ago, I still have a ways to go before I'm going to be that strong. But I mean, part of the message that I get to share through that is that so many people will try something and be like, that's impossible, and stop.
Sure.
And, especially like when the kids are climbing the rope in gym class, which I don't even know if that happens anymore. But, if a boy tries to climb a rope and can't do it, his friends make fun of him and they call him weak. And then he works on it and he gets strong and he does it. Whereas if a girl tries to climb a rope and doesn't do it, everyone's nice and they're like, oh, that's okay. It's really hard for girls to do that. So they move on and don't try.
Sure.
Frequently. But I like to be able to share that, like, I'm trying to do this thing and it's totally impossible for me right now. And it's going to take a long time to do it. And it's so validating to work through those things and take every step that's like, well, this was impossible last week. But because I've been working on it and then took the right rest and then worked on it again, I build step by step and do things that are so far beyond what initially seemed possible that it makes anything seem possible.
So, and it's cool to hear you say that because I'm a big process person, right? I think the process by which we go from sort of A to B is really what is the most important, powerful part, right? Yeah. One of the, Nick Saban, head coach of Alabama, big process guy, right? So when you look at something that's impossible right now for you, right, that you cannot do, and then you back it out, how do you do that, right? Like, how do you know then the things that need to happen between now and when you have to, for example, compete at a certain, part of the process or the task, right? How do you know how to kind of reverse timeline it, and what are the behaviors that roll up in that process to get you there?
Well, what I've found is that I can't reverse timeline it. Muscles and tendons are going to build strength at a certain speed. There's a maximum speed you can do without damaging them. And focusing on the timeline, because, I'm going to compete this year.
Sure.
And there is no way to build strength that took a guy 20 years to do. I can't build that in a month. There's no way.
Right.
It's not
sure.
And so but that's forced me to enjoy those earlier steps in the process even more, and break it down and be like, so here's my distant goal in the future that I want to do someday. And if I work towards it with everything I have and take all the steps correctly and never get there, I had an amazing journey and got better and gained skills and strength and more capable as a person because I worked towards that goal. And part of the reason that I have that opinion now is because I had such strong goals. And the end point was the important part for me. Right. I wanted to get the world record in pole vaulting, and everything was going towards that goal. And I don't feel like I enjoyed all the steps in between of being state champion and having the state record and getting a scholarship and, placing at Big 12s and all those things. Those were just like, well, this doesn't matter unless the next thing happens.
Got it.
And then failing ultimately at that goal was so crushing that I had to learn to be like, okay, yes, I'm working towards this goal and I want it really badly, but enjoy every little step along the way. Enjoy every little victory. Isaac, who won, can do, 50 pull-ups. And the other guy that won, Jeff Britton, his record is 114 pull-ups.
Wow.
That doesn't mean I can't be excited when I get 32, which is my next goal.
Sure.
I'm going to be thrilled when I get it because I just beat myself. I just got stronger. And so focusing it all on my own personal improvement and getting better has amazingly, that's what I had to do to be happy and confident about what I was doing. But in the end, it put me kind of like at the top of my field, which is what was the goal before.
Right,
it's funny when, they say focus on yourself and the results will come.
Sure. Well, and you talked about when you blew your knee out, right? And that's when you kind of got locked in on the Ninja Warrior. What did you, it sounds like you really looked at the half full side of that, right? And began to focus on the upper body and the, and the rock wall.
I had to.
Yeah. And so how did you come back from that mentally? I mean, was it that simple, right? I can still use my upper body, so I'm going to focus on that. And what are all the things that I can do to strengthen that? And while my leg heals?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I've come back from enough injuries to know that if you do the right physical therapy and you keep strengthening, and even when you finish physical therapy, you continue doing those exercises at a higher level. Because once I've weakened my knee, I know that I have to support it even more through muscles. And I just didn't want to break again. I wanted to be so strong and stable that my muscles become an armor around my joints, protecting my body. And so it just taught me that Ninja Warrior or stunts, whatever I'm doing, if I want to do it at the level that I enjoy and be flipping and flying through the air and twisting and learning new tricks, my legs have to be crazy strong. But if I want them to get crazy strong, I have to let them rest while I'm recovering from surgery.
Sure.
And I don't have the kind of mind that will let me just rest. Like, I need a goal. What can I focus on? And so I had to fill that gap with this thing that at the time, Ninja Warrior was just like a fun diversion. It was like, hey, this is a fun obstacle course. I enjoyed all the people I met last year. Let me do it again for fun. But I knew that I needed to fill that goal space for me.
Right.
So I didn't expect it to take hold the way it did. I thought that would be my focus until I was healthy, and then I would dive straight back into stunts with the enthusiasm I've always had.
God.
But this whole Ninja Warrior goal, once I started making so much progress towards it and feeling like, hey, I could be really good at this. Like, right. I've worked so hard. I've made so much progress. If I don't do well, man, that's going to hurt.
Right.
And yeah, so even when I came back to stunts and, was thrilled to be back in my martial arts classes and learning new flips again and loving every second of that, I was still like, I'm really having fun with Ninja Warrior too. And I don't want to slack off on that training. And I had a great season 7 and was like, oh, I'm so in love with this. Like, I didn't mean to care this much because at that time, my experience had been through gymnastics and pole vaulting and all these things that I had such strong goals at. My experience was, if you care as much as you care, you're going to overdo it and hurt yourself and fail, and it's going to crush you.
Sure.
And so when I started caring again, I was like, oh no, you can't care this much. It's not okay. you're not going to be okay if you care this much. Stop caring.
Right.
And I couldn't do it. And that's when I had to learn, if you care as much as you say you do, you have to do the part that's hard for you. Just because most people have to motivate themselves to train harder doesn't mean that that's what I have to do. I consider it a privilege to get to keep pushing through everything. It's such a cool concept to me. And I don't get to do that. I have to focus on being really disciplined about all that recovery work and not overtraining. And when I finally learned that concept, that's when I was able to succeed. And it was so hard for that first year of experimenting with that and, stopping a workout earlier than I wanted to and feeling that, my brain telling me I'm lazy and that I should need to work harder.
Wow.
And you're never
Sure.
You only, ran this many laps and this many sets of stairs. And how are you going to gain muscle and strength to do these things if you do half workouts?
Sure.
And then, I had to bring back that rational part of my brain that knew what I was talking about before I had that rush of endorphins and say, if you want to get as strong as you can get, you have to take the rest.
Right. Our bodies need recovery, right? I mean, they need it. And then I'm sure as you began to dial it back and still have success, you went, okay, I'm finding my formula. And maybe I would assume that helped you trust yourself a little bit more.
It did, or contradict, know which voice in my head to be like,
right.
Oh, you're wrong.
Yep.
And it was amazing because, I'd always felt like I had the potential to go be the best at what I was doing. And it just hadn't happened. And it felt like it was not for lack of trying, but like, if you try as hard as you can and you're still failing, what's wrong with me?
Mm-hmm.
And part of it is like, well, maybe I was in the wrong sport. Like maybe I got lucky and someone came together and was like, we're going to throw all these random skills together into an obstacle course. And they happen to be all the skills that you've been training your whole life, except for grip strength.
Sure.
That's why I'm on it. But who knows how much more I could have done? How high could I have pole vaulted if I'd understood that, if I have a rough meet, the solution is not go home and do like lunges and squat jumps in your dorm room.
Right.
The solution is like, the reason you didn't jump your highest today is because your legs were exhausted and heavy from overtraining yesterday when the coach said to have a rest day.
Sure.
So it's always those lessons that are the hardest to learn.
But it sounds like you listen to your body better and you've learned them, which is huge.
It's taken me a long time, but I think I've learned that lesson, and it's that constant struggle of trying to understand and remember which things I have to do and which ones to taper off on.
Right. So I have to ask, earlier you said something about going to work and then going to train. And when you say going to work, what do you do in addition to all this other unbelievable stuff?
So I'm a stuntwoman.
Right. Okay. So that's what you meant by going to work. Mm-hmm. Okay. Going to the stunt work. Got it. Okay. I was making sure you weren't going to kind of throw at me like I'm a computer programmer all day, and then I go do all this. I was trying to I was just making sure. Okay.
I majored in aerospace engineering for 1 year, but realized it wasn't for me. So.
Yeah, you don't really seem like that's, right inside your wheelhouse. It just saying. So I've got to ask you, you've got the Wolfpack Ninja Tour coming up in Denver, April 29th through 30th. What can all your fans expect? And tell me, get me inside your world as you prepare for that and all that kind of stuff.
So the first thing is the whole reason we started this Wolfpack Ninja Tour is because, this Ninja Warrior TV show is taking off, and we've got adults and kids all over the country and all over the world who are dying to compete. And you have to be 21 to compete. So all the teenagers and kids who are training for this and want to do it have nowhere that they can compete. And all the adults who want to get on the show, there's only so many spots, and it is a TV show.
Sure.
And so part of the factor is, yes, of course, are you an athlete? Can you get through this? Do they think you have the strength to complete a course? But a huge component is, are you going to be entertaining? Does America want to watch you?
Right.
Do they like your story? And now that there are so many people who want to do this sport, it needs to become an official sport. And so there's a couple leagues now that have sprung up all over the country, and there's gyms where you can compete, and now there's 2 different rounds of nationals that have different format. And the Wolfpack Ninja Tour, our first event, April 29th and 30th, is in Denver, and anyone can sign up, but it's not just competition. Well, so there is head-to-head competition. There's 2 courses side by side. Anyone can sign up, anyone compete. There's different age divisions, and there's separate prizes for men's and women's. And you get to race head-to-head with professionals from the show, or I'm not sure exactly how. Yeah, it's going to be super fun. The difficulty level of the obstacles is a little bit lower.
Okay.
So it's based more on speed. You're going to be racing through obstacles where on the show, we're like, you're taking your 30 seconds rest between to get ready for the next thing. This one, you're not going to run out of strength, most likely. You're going to race for speed. So in addition to this competition, there's spectator tickets for the people who qualify for finals.
Okay.
So anyone can come watch. There's VIP tickets, but there's also kids classes with all the top ninjas. So we're going to be teaching all weekend. And then there's meet and greets and photos with the ninjas. I think that's it.
Wow.
So it's just like a great opportunity to meet the ninjas or compete and come beat us.
Yeah, I might come out there and just, line up next to you, girl, and just take you,
You should
down,
totally
baby.
come.
Yeah, right. No chance, sister. You're a badass. So you're doing some speed work then, right? As you're getting ready for this, is what I'm hearing.
Nope.
No speed work, but this is kind of a little bit more of a speed deal. You kind of indicated.
Totally true.
Okay.
And I'm competing on season 9 of Ninja Warrior. That's my next thing.
Okay.
That's happening 2 months earlier. So right now I'm focused on building strength to compete on the show. And it's not like I'm neglecting speed work. I'm still doing that, but I will amp that training up after qualifiers and finals for the TV show Ninja Warrior.
Okay.
So yeah, definitely a different type of training, but first things first. So higher priority right now is building the strength.
Yeah, got it. So,
but speed work.
Yeah, tell me.
I would love to share this with everyone.
Please.
The way I do speed work, and so right now I do this more like once a week, but anyone can do this anywhere. I go to a elementary school playground where there's monkey bars and stuff to climb on and jump over, and I look at everything they have there, and I pick something to do on it. So, we run up the slide, we go across the monkey bars, we jump with 2 feet from this to this, you have to hang from this other thing, sprint from this corner to that corner. And so you just set up a course of whatever order you want to do everything in, and you time yourself. And then you have your kids go through it, and you time them. And then you try to beat your first time, and you do that a bunch of times. And it's amazing to me. Like, they're all simple obstacles. None of them are that hard. They're kids' toys.
Sure.
But when you string them all together and try to do them fast, man, I get winded fast.
Wow.
It's such a good workout, but it's also so available. You don't need a coach there necessarily. You go with your friends, and it's really fun. And just like, it'll get you winded pretty quickly.
Oh, I bet. So you lift weights, obviously, right? You do cardio. Can you give me just a quick inside scoop of your training regimen? Because I want abs like yours.
Oh, thank you. Interestingly enough, I actually don't really do cardio. My cardio is anywhere from 2 to 10 minutes max. And so what I'm trying to do is how long can I maintain maximum effort?
Okay.
Because everything I do, there's nothing that I do where I'm going to be going for more than probably 6 minutes.
Sure. Okay.
Most of my things are like a 10-second burst. So I'm training for the function of what am I going to use this for? And I thought that not doing cardio would, everyone thinks cardio is the way to lose weight. And when I stopped focusing on that, I thought I might gain a little weight or get a little chunkier. And it was totally the opposite, because I was building all these muscles that are then burning calories all day, basically. And I ended up getting leaner by training all strength and those short bursts of, even if it's 5 minutes, just going as hard as I can for those 5 minutes. But so my typical training, I usually rotate, if I can, push day, pull day, leg day.
Okay.
So on push day, I'm doing like handstands, handstand push-ups, dumbbell, bench press in kind of every direction. Boxing, anything that's pushing things away from me.
Okay.
On pull day, that's the biggest day for Ninja Warrior, where I'm training grip strength, hanging from my fingers, doing a couple hours of rock climbing, maxing out my pull-ups, doing as many as I can in one set, and then resting, and then doing as many as I can in the second set. And one of my big principles that I work on for gaining strength as quickly as I can is you don't pick a number. I mean, I pick a number to try to beat, but that number is always something that is just like so far right on the edge of what I'm capable of that it has me striving. But if I get that number, I'm still trying for the next one. So what I'm aiming for in every single set of what I do in pull-ups and a lot of other exercises is where is that moment where I can't do another one, and stay in that moment for as long as you can. When your muscles start shaky, start failing, that's where you're gaining the absolute most strength. And so a big part of why I've been able to get so strong and have so much fun on the journey is because I learned to really enjoy and appreciate that moment of I can't do any more, but I'm going to fight for it.
Yeah.
I'm going to try.
And get it and do it.
Or fail.
Yeah. But then you try again, right? I mean, if I
get it and do it, then then I have to try another one.
Sure.
Because I'm doing until I fail.
Right.
And enjoying those last 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds of like having nothing left but fighting for it anyway, that's when those muscles are getting the strongest.
And I can hear, listening to you, I can see why that training mindset, that methodology works in what made you so successful in the ninja, with Ninja Warriors, right?
Yeah,
it's that same deal, right? I mean, you're sort of dying and you still got to go on to the next thing. Right.
And there's so many obstacles where, like in my regional finals, I knew I was going to fail on it's the wedge. They call it the wedge, but it's like these two walls set up in a wedge. They're plexiglass, and you have a bar that's wedged between them, and you have to hop the bar forward between them without it slipping sideways and falling. And I knew my grip was going to be tired by the time I got there, and I really didn't think I was capable of doing it. And so getting there and just attacking it with, like, let's say hypothetically, if I could do this, how would I attack it? And just going through every little step, knowing that I'm failing, but not caring. And then getting to the end, and as I released on the dismount, flying through the air and being like, wait a second, I didn't fail. Like, I'm flying through the air and I'm okay. And I landed.
God, I know.
And it's just like, there's so many things that I do. I'm so used to being in that space of like, this is impossible, but I don't care. And fighting through it, that so frequently I find out I was wrong. The things I thought were impossible. Nope, you can do that now. Great. Okay, what's next? And so now I'm on this next obstacle and I'm like, well, this is impossible.
But you don't tell yourself that in the moment though, that you can't, you don't tell yourself this is impossible.
That's what everyone says. And they say it's so important to believe you can do it. And maybe deep down, I have that such a strong belief that I can do everything.
Right.
But still, there's so many things. To me, it's not a factor at all. The only time it's damaging to me to believe that I'm going to fail is if it stops me from trying. Whether or not I believe I can do it doesn't seem to be a factor for me, as long as I look at, if you could do it, how would you do it? And then fight for it. And then as you're failing, like, I don't care that I'm failing, go for the next thing. I'm so used to like hanging on that rock wall and my fingers are locked. Like, I can't even move them. They're stuck in this claw and I know they're going to give out any second. And I'm like, don't care, still reaching. And I can go 3 or 4 reaches past where I thought I was going to fall.
Wow.
So being comfortable in that space of like, yeah, you're going to fall, but I don't care. And you can, it's like this being in the habit of biting off more than you can chew.
Right.
Which, of course, only do that when you have a safety net. Like on Ninja Warrior, I'm over a pit of water. So
you're safe.
Or when I fail, the consequences are reasonable. So I'm not saying like go hitchhiking and
sure.
bite off more than you can chew. Know where your safety net is. Know that you know how to fall. One of the reasons I have so much freedom to try things that I don't know if I can do is because I learned very early how to fall safely. And if you know how to fall safely, then you have the freedom to try anything.
Wow. Thanks, as always, for listening. And if you missed an episode, you can listen to previous episodes on iTunes or on mollyfletcher.com. Until next time, stay curious and be a game changer.